just made me like throw up in my mouth a little bit because these words don't mean anything. All right, so if you just want to see answers, here are answers, but I would like to discuss things because like 20, a lot of us I'm sure struggled with that one. So I'm recording right now, right? You can go back to the video if you just need to see answers. Here's answers for 521. Just so you guys all, hey, don't, like, you're not trying to check every single answer right now. Okay. I just want to get them in the video, and then I want to start talking about some of these problems. We may not actually get to 522 today. It might carry over as tomorrow's homework. I'll put it out so you can get to it and, like, try the homework if you want. But, like, guys, it's okay for us to be a little flexible. Either way, is 522 due tomorrow? No. The 3 that you should have on your desk in front of you right now, that's what's due tomorrow. Did anyone, like, figure out how to do the candidate problem? Like, not just using, like, a guess and check method, like, using algebra. Carter?
Okay, so that one was on the 5.1.2, right?
Yes, 511 we checked the other day, took some questions. We're mainly, I wanted you guys to get 511 out because you can turn it in. If we're done with all 3, you guys are able to turn these in at the end of the day. By the way, before Carter starts telling us what to do, when you guys turn stuff in, my first class of the day was here. Where do you think my second class of the day is?
Right under it?
You are correct. So your class is right here. Please try to put it in the actual right spot, because otherwise when you come ask me, hey, did you get my thing and update it? And I go look in that class, I'm like, no, you didn't turn it in. If it's accidentally in a different class, it just creates a whole lot of confusion. So try to put it in the right spot. All right, Carter, how'd you do this?
All right, so when I read the question, one thing I noticed is that everything was being compared to A.
Ooh, everything was being compared to A.
So B was twice as many votes as A, so B equaled 2A. And C received 15,000.
Slow down.
All right, B was 2A because it had twice of A. And C received 15,000 votes to the candidate A. So, and then A was obviously just A.
But that's not obvious. That's the part that a lot of us forget. You write down B, you write down C, but you forget to go ahead and like say A is A. So, I mean, it feels obvious, but it's not. It's easy to forget about it. Go ahead.
All right.
I know I said the bad word, sorry, but I was talking about forgetting, so I don't know if it counts.
All right, so then I combined all of my like terms, and I got.
Why did you do that?
So I can like.
What else had they told us? What is A plus B plus C?
109,000.
Questions on how Carter got to this point. Notice how I'm not doing anything but writing. Carter, go ahead.
Alright, so after I combined my lectures, I got.
Well, hold on. First, you really substituted and put in all the values that you'd already figured out. Questions here. We replaced B with what we said about B. We replaced C with what we said about C. Go ahead.
Alright, now at this point, I combined all my current like terms into 4A, and then minus 15,000 equals 109,000.
And you definitely didn't write any of this down on your paper.
I definitely didn't.
Being sarcastic, guys, you gotta write stuff down. This is too much math to try to just do in your head. Carter, what do we do now? I bet all of us can figure out what to do now.
Yeah.
At this point, what would you do on both sides? Anyone?
I had 15,000.
Add 15 grand, and then what would we do?
Divide
Divide by 4. So this is not really the part that we're checking. Do you know how to do? I mean, yes, you need to finish the problem. But what we're actually like working on now is taking the verbal situation, creating our expressions, and then applying the algebra that we've been practicing. Questions on how Carter did this? And then we get to our answers. But a lot of times when I go over problems, I don't go all the way to the answer because I already showed you the answers. I want you to still have some math to do. I think another one that was probably a little tricky was 21. Guys, if you didn't do 21 yet, then problem on last night's homework, 29, I think it was, would have been really tough. Yeah, 29, which I put on the back. I put the problems out of order. But if you hadn't done, so guys, this goes back to like, do your homework in order. Like, if you have missing homework from earlier in the week, do that first. Because they build on each other. So, anyone want to talk me through this? Because this one was kind of tricky. If you didn't think it was tricky, good for you. Yeah, this one's kind of tricky, right? So, if you haven't done 21 yet, get a pencil or something to do it. If you have, I'd still like you paying attention to make sure you did it right. If you are secretly doing your homework right now, please stop. Because we're not doing homework right now. We're checking it, going over it, verifying that we know what we did. Vivian, you want to walk me through it?
Okay. So we want to graph the 2 points.
Can I keep a scale of 1 to 1, or do I need to change a scale?
I think you can keep a scale.
Yeah. Guys, when I put this graph space on your paper, you don't have to use it, but I've tried to make it big enough to match what you're doing. So Vivian says plot 1, 1, plot 2, 4. If you forget how to plot points, they are x, y. X is our horizontal, y is our vertical. What do I do now, Lydia? Sure.
Huh?
I'm looking over there at you frantically writing things down. Sorry, that's why your brain is on my mind. Vivian. I'll still be getting names goofed up in April. I'm not, it's just like your brain is doing too much.
You just scared me, that's all. So now we have to do the growth.
How do we do growth?
Rise over run.
And if you forget that, that's dangerous to just pull up because I don't know if my email is going to show or whatever. Guys, like, I have realized from my past years that if I drop everything into map, by the way, Kamal is like famous at this point for how many times he ends up in front of people's faces. I realize that if I drop everything into Schoology immediately, you guys don't care. If I keep changing and adding stuff to Schoology, you might actually care a bit more because it's active as we're doing stuff and struggling on it. Slope is rise over run. I can either do the subtraction or I can draw a picture. So if I go to draw a picture for this one, I've already got my points. Now I just kind of make that triangle. So I'm going to use a different color just to be able to look at it. I always do rise first and then run just to do it in order. So what's my rise?
3.
I could also do the math of, sorry, here's the dangerous part. It's y first. It's
What?
delta y, your slope. This is why we're reviewing this and practicing. M or R or whatever you're going to call our slope is the change in y over change in x. I know, it feels weird. We normally talk x, y. Here's the way I like to remember it. When you go to write your equation, we're going to do like y equals rx plus b or y equals mx plus b. What did we write first? The y. What do I write first? The y. Like that's just, it just worked for me. So our change in y is a positive 3. Our change in x, positive 1. So our slope, we know this r, our ratio, is 3. But then we still have this pesky little plus b. How'd you deal with that, Vivian?
So the next one, you just keep graphing the points. So you go down 3 and over 1.
Oh, I could do the opposite then and go down 3 over, a y-intercept. So what's our b?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. So you could write minus 2 or you could write negative 2. You don't have to graph them though. In this problem you pretty much do because they only give you 2 points. But you don't actually have to graph them. Because yesterday in the video, we didn't really let Professor Schmohawk talk about this much, but there is a way to solve this called point slope. That once we know the slope, we could plug in a point, solve it from there. Or, I want to show you guys the other way in problem 29, but I want your guys' help if you know how to do this. So we can come back to these, but I specifically wanted to make sure we talked about problem 29 today. So I went ahead and made this one, like, pick one of these, but whichever one you did on your own or tried on your own, I'm going to ask that you do the other one also, like, because we're going to do it together. So we're going to talk about A first, but then we're going to talk about B. So make sure we're looking at 29. I should see the big graph space on the back of everyone's paper. Not to be weird, but I'm going to steal Kyrie's for a moment. I should see this in front of everyone's, like, on everyone's paper. So these numbers get kind of big. Also negative. Sort of annoying. That graph space I gave you might work. You don't need to graph this. Those of you that like labeled everything, counted stuff, changed scale maybe, you all might be annoyed by me saying we don't need to graph this. We can, it'll work. We don't need to. Work with me. By the way, graph paper should be an everyday assumption now. If we're ever writing stuff, you're like, I don't have space. Just write it on your graph paper, right? You can always staple graph paper with your homework. Slope, we just talked about, rise over run. So if I'm trying to figure out my y equals rx plus b, I can figure out a piece of it if I just figure out the rise over the run. If I want to get bigger, so I have positive rise and run, I'm going to go from 2.5 to 8.25. What is my rise there? That's our delta y, right? So our delta y would be 23 minus 5. Our delta x, 8 minus 2. Okay, that one we know. What's 23 minus 5? 18, right? So if we went up to 20, then 23, so we get 18 over 6. What's our slope? 3. So now we can write y equals 3x plus we don't know. But now, once we know the slope, figure out what makes this true. If I do 3 times 2, if I just do the 3 times, what do I get? 6. So what do I need to do to get to the correct y, Jack?
Subtract 1.
Let's check that again. What do I get if I do 8 times 3?
24.
Do I also need to subtract 1 there?
Yes.
So then this, double check it. What's 9 times 3? 27 minus 1. Oh, now you want to see the other way to do it?
No.
Yeah, you do. If that whole, like, think it through, just figure it out. Because, guys, as the lists of, like, numbers get more difficult, that might not work. Let's imagine we didn't figure out b that way. I have y equals 3x plus b. I have 3 unknown things here, right? X, y, and b. But honestly, my x and y aren't really unknown. They're just not filled in. Eva?
You can fill them in with one of the coordinates on there.
Say more. Let's use 2, 5 because it's smaller numbers. But say, like, what do you mean? Say more.
I don't know.
I know, and I'm stressing you out. But what is the 2?
There was the x.
What's the 5?
Y.
So y is 5. X is 2. Can't draw numbers today. I blame Dave.
It's 2.
And guys, we could just do the algebra. I mean, this is kind of what we just did mentally. But what I'm showing you is when the numbers get really, like, messy, you can plug in one of the points we know. Solve it that way. So let's think this through for B. What's in that green box there?
0.
Not the origin. The origin's 0, 0. Madeline?
I didn't talk. So it
the way, side note, most of my tests are open note, like use anything you've written down, which these homework problems often like kind of lean into what's going to be on the test, or are sometimes like identical. I got something stuck in my throat. So maybe take some notes.
Maybe.
I can't wink very well, so the whole like cough thing is how I like, you know, maybe taking. It's weird. I don't like winking. It's weird. Guys, this is your y-intercept. You've got part of the equation right now. Now, what's funny is some of you probably looked at A versus B, and you're like, A looks easier. I'm doing A. B is 100% easier. I don't know what 100% means in that application. I should not have put a math number on that. So if I start writing my equation, y equals, I'm going to use m this time just for some flavor. The y-intercept is 2. Because we're getting used to using rx, I want to keep us flexible and use mx here just because. I'm supposed to figure out the y-intercept, done, and the slope. Wait, how do we figure out slope? Rise over run. Guys, literally, check this out. Delta y, what is it from 2 to 50? 50. Delta x. So our slope is 50 over 10. What's our slope? It's 5. You don't have to graph anything. You can, it'll work. You don't have to. So our equation just becomes y equals 5x plus 2. Mic drop. I got a snicker out of Will. Other requests? 31. Oh, which part?
All of it?
Oh, that's no. It can't be all of it.
Let's go with B. Let's go with B.
Yeah, B. B was confusing.
We'll start with B.
So like this one, right? P equals -3W plus 9. You guys are funny. Because all I'm going to do is ask questions, and you're going to know how to solve this. We want to get W by itself.
Yeah.
What would you get rid of first here? The 9. How would we get rid of it?
Subtracting on the other side. Or both sides.
On the other side.
No, because like when you get rid of when you use the 9, it just, in my head, it plays as like the 9 just like disappears, and you're just putting it on the other side.
Yeah, you're just moving it.
I know. So that's why it didn't say subtract on both sides.
I can almost guarantee, I don't like using definitive words, I can almost guarantee you made this more difficult than it needed to be.
Probably.
Because what are we going to do now to get the W by itself? Anybody? So I just don't want to scroll my screen too far. So this W is going to become, you don't need to do that math because we can't do that math. It's P minus 9 divided by -3. That is the answer. I bet you like tried to go farther than that. We can't do more. Now we could break, if you really wanted to, we could break up the P divided by -3 and -9, but you don't need to. Until we know what P is, or until we know what W is, like that's fine. This can be our answer. It's like how we talk about fractions being like that's a ratio. Does that make sense? Questions?
Will you see now?
I guess.
C.
That's real. We can talk through it, but I don't know that I'm gonna like do it for you. We want M by itself. What would you get rid of first? The -6 by adding 6 to both sides.
On both sides.
Then, how do we turn 2M into just M?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. Please don't get in the habit of thinking like, oh, well, I can just put off doing my homework because we're easing into
I
this.
figured it out.
Like, I will always take questions on homework, but if you are doing your homework for the first time right now, you didn't get the benefit out of it that you should have from doing it on your own. Carter.
So, I kind of did something, and I think, I haven't, checked, but I think I got the right answer. For C, I did, instead of isolating the M immediately, what I did was I isolated the N on the other side, and I just subtracted N from the -6 and got -10, and, added it on both sides. I don't even know why I did that.
I mean,
Did it
M
work?
comes out to be 2n plus 5.
Yeah, that's what I
Did
got.
it end up working?
Well, there you go.
It works.
So,
but I
algebra,
just used the whole
you could literally put 1,000 steps of algebra that are unnecessary and still get to the same answer, right? Because algebra says you can do anything. You could do anything all day long and still get back to the same answer. Was it necessary? Maybe not. But was it allowed? Sure, as long as we do it on both sides.
Okay, so
Almost
for
out.
the last question, I divided it by 2.
First,
Well, no, I didn't do that first, but
I was about to say it might have just
when
been.
you add the 6 on both sides,
Yeah.
you get 4n plus 10.
Yeah.
I divided by 2 on the numbers, but I didn't on the variables.
Happens
Would
to
that be
everything.
considered wrong?
Well, I mean, so remember, your homework is very low risk about getting answers wrong because, I'm grading on effort. But if we have this and we go to divide by 2, over here, 2 different numbers, that division by 2 has to apply to both of them. But here, I can do that because I have 4n. Now, could we leave it written like this? Sure. But is that simplified? No. 4n divided by 2, 2n. 10 divided by 2, 5. Here, it's better to go ahead and do that division.
Okay,
As opposed to with B, it was nicer to just leave it in rational form. Because, yeah, this one simplifies nicely. Caroline?
So, I don't know if it's just me, but I kind of made, not good decision, and when I was reading it, for A, when it says y equals 2x minus 5 for x, I thought that it meant -5 for x, so I did 2 times -5, so.
Yeah, do you get what it means now? Okay, that's all that really matters. It's okay if you, misunderstood it or whatever. Also, you can always go to homework help, and normally, especially on problems like this, one of them will take you all the way to the answer. So guys, if you're reading through a homework or whatever and it doesn't make sense, first off, you could reach out to me. Only one person emailed me last night, and they sent me the tiniest screenshot that I could not understand what they were asking. Aside from that, nobody reached out to me about, hey, can we go over this? What's this mean? Whatever. But yeah, so that's what this actually means here. Hey guys, let's not highlight each other. It's not like during my class. Questions?
Carter?
Yeah, Carter.
Yeah, Jack.
What?
Yeah, Lydia.
I'm being bullied.
I don't think that's bull.
You just circled back
okay.
around.
If 511, 512, and 521 are all as done as they need to be, which, on 22 we did pick 2, on 29 we said pick 1. Staplers are up here. Hold on. Your homework needs to be in order. So 511 goes on top. 512 goes behind that. 521 goes behind that. If they're not ready to be turned in, that's okay, because they're due tomorrow. But if they are ready to be turned in, you can go ahead and come up here, staple them. Please don't be like, oh, he'll staple it. Yeah, 20 of you do that. Think about it. It's a real pain in the butt. Staple them together. Make sure your name is on them. At least the front one. And then put them in the second slot because that's yours. I'll put 522 out back there if you want to go ahead and grab it.
No.
But we are going to get to that content tomorrow.
Mine's here.
So if you grab it today, please don't also get it tomorrow. I'm sorry. Yeah, that is no good.
I don't know why it's taking it.
Oh, I imprint. There's 2 little dots on my
Yeah, well, okay. Here's the toss-up. Whatever you want to tell yourself. Either you can tell yourself there's no homework today, happy Halloween, and 522 is tomorrow's homework, sorry to give you homework on a Friday. Or you can tell yourself 522 is tonight's homework, and there's no homework on Friday, but like we're doing 522 tomorrow in class. So if you want to grab it so you can work on, and guys, it's going to sit back there, so if it's like AO, and you're like, oh, I'm all caught up, I should get the next math homework, you can come and grab it. Extensions, you can come and grab it. But please don't take multiple. I don't make a lot of extra copies, because I like Mother Earth. She's kind of important. So please don't take multiple copies. Please try to keep track of your papers. Please try to smile occasionally. All right, you guys can head to lunch. Have a great day. Everything is great. The whole
Everything
world
is perfectly fine.